how's law enforcement doing? Who's coming into our community to help us work?
Hey, hey. Alright, this is where the model is so far, and I've got it up on my vise. I don't know if you can see this, but these are the little string of LED lights, and I've got them wound into the different areas here, going in and out. And this is what it looks like before. It's just empty. This is foam, the pink stuff, and the pink stuff is essentially real easy to cut, real easy to sand. I'm using a rasp, this rasp, to basically grind away the bigger parts of it so that I can get it down to where I can use a sanding block. And basically this is an 80 grit wrapped around a regular sanding block, you know, and I basically just sand it off. So I found that circles do really well so that you don't get a lot of problems when you're sanding. If you go in a straight line, you'll get an edge somewhere, a bevel, and you don't want that. You want a nice round area. So just keep working it all the way down and all the way back, and work it across each section. You work it across the section, a section at a time, and what you end up with is a good amount of just a nice smooth basically a tapering smooth line. You don't get like edges that come to a point somewhere. If you go in one direction for too long, you're going to end up with a hard flat edge. Now that's the other thing, you do want something that's flat. I use this, and this is hard, but it's not so hard that it makes a curve. You do want to bring it down very slightly because you don't want to go under that. This is my curve that everything has to match. It's kind of like I get to that and it's going to make a different sound. So when it makes that different sound, that's when I stop. I try to stop just before. There's like a little bit of gap there. I'll take something as small as this and fine tune that really carefully, going over it until it's just right. I can get real precise. This is all rough right now. There's some edges in these, you know, so basically there's like a millimeter left to go. And I won't shave that millimeter down until the last moment before I put the nitro stain and then come back with a resin coat. Now this right here is slowing me down because I have to cut all this, and then I have to cut the channels and work all of these little wires into these gaps, and then I come over here and I cut the next piece to go on top of it. I'm using just a little hacksaw and it does extremely well. It's a fine blade that can basically cut into the foam really easily, and it does real well. I can, you know, I'm patient because I want a smooth cut, and you have to be. This stuff is real temperamental. There are a lot of people that say that this stuff is really hard to work with and it's trash and you don't want to do it. I find that it's like a wonder product. It's not something I build I don't build for structure with this very often. If I do, it's a pretty small model because this stuff is not all that dense. It's cheap. It is cheap, and that's why I'm using it. Essentially, you can cut your pieces to fit in there, and this one goes in this area. I just cut it out, and I cut it a little too big, and that's good because then I come right over here and I have to sand it down just so it'll fit perfect, and I want a perfect fit. Again, you don't want to go in one direction too much, but you also want to sand across the entire edge. You want to cross the entire edge, and you want to go in different directions on that edge too, because you want that to remain level at 90 degrees. I just keep testing it, and it's nice and snug now. Snug is good, but I can't go all the way back because there's a little buttress right here to this. So I have to cut that out now. And I'll take this and I'll put it right here. And there are two of them. There's one against the back and one against here. So let's make this cut first. A Sharpie works really good. We'll take the Sharpie, mark where that is, and then I can basically figure out where I have to make that cut. I make the mark, figure out where that thing is right here, and then score it, and then cut it out using my knife. Keep it real sharp. If it's real sharp, it'll go through it like butter. If it's not, it'll rip all to shreds. And then you'll be sad. You don't want to be sad. So keep your knife sharp. So it's just that simple. Then this will just pop right out and you've got your cut. Now for the back side, it goes all the way back there. There's about a 1/4 inch that has to come out of there. That's a simple cut too. I just basically, I've done this so many times, I know exactly how big it needs to be. And it can be a little bigger, it just can't be a little smaller, because you're never going to see this. And that's it. Take it a little bit to get rid of those burrs in there. And that's all there is to it. Now it should fit right in there. I'm going to have a little trouble because it is snug, and I have to raise it up and get it past this wire, so I might have to rasp off a little more. I'm going to give it a little more curve on that side just so I can get this wire by it. Right there. Now that it's in there, I have to make a few more measurements. We want to cut this L shape right here. So I got to mark this. I'm not going to mark it here, I'm going to mark it right back here and here. That way I know to make that line. The other line, I can just put this here, right up against the plywood, and pull it across that corner. Makes a mark right where I need it. Do the same thing on the other side, and I've got my measurement. Now you pull it back out, you make your cut. There we go. Now you can put it down here, start your stop line where you want it to go to. A few pulls across there and it's about halfway through. Now I can just run this line straight all the way down. Now be patient when you're doing these kinds of things with foam. Some people like to use one of those hot wires. I would not recommend that for detail work like this. This is very precise, very angular. Unless you are really good with one of those things, which I've used them. I don't recommend them because precise work isn't exactly what it's all about. Yeah, sure, you can make a lot of cuts really fast, but if you need really precise work, it can be a pain because you go a little too far and it's done. You've ruined it. And I've also tried using, right behind me, you can't see it, it's just off screen, off camera, but I have a belt sander. And a belt sander can be handy for certain things, but again, not for something like this. Precise cuts like that is very hard to make. Again, after every cut, I try to keep it as smooth as possible. And you're seeing this just as I do it. There is nothing else to this. This is as much as I do. Now I can fit this in here again. It's going to be a little easier because it's a little smaller. Now I have to make this trench. So again, with the Sharpie, I lay this down to where I want it, or where I think it'll go best, and I draw a line right around that. And that's where that's going to go. So I've got my line, I take it back out. Alright, now I go to the Dremel and I whittle this out with a wheel. I've got a little wheel on there, and basically that's how I carve this little trench into the gap. Another piece of foam will go right over that and cover it up just like this. There are 3 pieces of foam that have to go from top to bottom. Now you might notice there are different ways to layer this. You could go side to side to side, or you could go up and down. It's probably better to do this, but it's going to use more material, and it's also going to be a little harder to fit together. When I'm going outside and I'm cutting this to fit is harder than cutting that to fit, believe it or not. I tried it both ways at the beginning, and I decided that I only needed 3 for this. I needed 3.5 for that, so each one of these was going to take at least 3 and then some. To go top to bottom, I needed 3 every time. So it worked out better this way. This is where we're at the Normandy SR2 Mass Effect video game build, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Give me a like. We'll see you later.